Imagine standing on a balcony on the 45th floor. The air is thick, humid, but the view is electric. Below you, the Saigon River is reflecting the neon lights of a city that never really sleeps. It's 2026, and Ho Chi Minh City has morphed into this incredible futuristic metropolis. It feels like the center of the world. But here's the question that keeps me up at night. Does that view belong to you, or are you just borrowing it on very shaky terms?
That is the perfect way to frame it. You're borrowing it. And in a market moving as fast as Vietnam's, the terms of that borrowing are everything. It's seductive, isn't it? The marble floors, the infinity pools, the promise of a luxury lifestyle. But underneath that gloss, there is a labyrinth of paperwork, legal gray areas, and potential pitfalls that can turn that dream apartment into a very expensive prison.
A prison with a nice view, maybe, but still. It's interesting you use the word labyrinth, because when I look at the checklist for renting in 2026, it doesn't look like a simple transaction. It looks like a strategic negotiation. Take the lease agreement itself. I feel like most people just glance at the rent price, check the dates, and sign.
And that is the fatal error. In 2026, the lease isn't just a receipt, it's your only shield. You have to remember, Vietnam operates on a civil law system, but the rental market, especially the luxury segment, operates on leverage. If your contract is vague, you have zero leverage. The first thing, the language barrier. It sounds obvious, but you'd be shocked how many expats sign a contract that is only in Vietnamese because the agent says, "Oh, it's standard form."
Standard form is usually code for don't worry about the fine print, right?
Exactly. Standard protects the landlord. You need a bilingual contract, English and Vietnamese. And the English version needs to hold equal weight in the eyes of the signatories, even if the Vietnamese version is the one that holds up in court. You need to know exactly what you are agreeing to regarding termination. If you lose your job and have to leave the country, can you break the lease? Or are you on the hook for 6 months of rent at $3,000 a month?
That's a massive liability, and it brings up the issue of who you're actually dealing with. In a city developing this fast, I imagine there are a lot of middlemen. You might think you're renting from the owner, but are you?
That's the ghost landlord scenario. It's rampant. You meet a guy in a suit, he has the keys, he shows you around. You sign, you pay. 2 months later, the actual owner shows up asking why you're sleeping in his living room. You have to verify the ownership papers. In Vietnam, we often refer to the Red Book or the ownership certificate. If the person signing the lease doesn't have their name on that legal document or a notarized power of attorney from the person who does, you are essentially squatting.
That is a terrifying thought. You pay a deposit, you move in, and you have no legal right to be there. It makes you realize that luxury isn't just about the furniture, it's about the legitimacy of the asset.
Precisely. Legitimacy is the ultimate luxury, and that extends to your legal status as a human being in that apartment. We need to talk about the police registration.
Right, the residence registration. I've heard stories about this. It feels a bit old school. Like, why does the local police officer need to know exactly where I sleep?
It might feel old school, but in 2026, it's digital, it's instant, and it's mandatory. If you are a foreigner, your landlord must register your presence with the local police ward. If they don't, perhaps because they're dodging taxes on the rental income, you are the one in trouble. You can't get a temporary residence card, you can't renew your visa, and you could face heavy fines. You are essentially a ghost in the system.
So you're paying for a penthouse, but legally you don't exist. That's a precarious way to live.
It is. And some luxury buildings have their own internal laws, too. Strict rules on guests, pets, even moving hours. You need to clarify those before you sign. But let's zoom out a bit. Let's talk about the physical reality of living in HCMC. You mentioned the view earlier.
Yes, the skyline. It's beautiful.
It is. But you can't live on a view. You have to live in a neighborhood. Location in Saigon is a game of trade-offs. In 2026, the metro lines are better, sure, but the traffic density is still immense. You need to calculate the friction of your life. How close is the international hospital? The supermarket? If you have kids, the school?
It's the difference between a 15-minute commute and a 90-minute commute, which changes your entire quality of life.
And not just commute. Think about the microenvironment. Is there a construction site next door? In a developing city, a quiet view today can become a jackhammer symphony tomorrow. And then, there's the inside of the apartment. The climate here is unforgiving.
The humidity. It eats everything.
It destroys electronics, it warps wood, and it breeds mold. When you inspect a luxury apartment, don't just look at the aesthetics. Turn on the air conditioning. Crank it down. Does it rattle? Does it smell? Check the water pressure. In 2026, smart home systems are standard. But if the basic plumbing is bad, no amount of voice-controlled lighting will save you. You have to be a bit of a forensic investigator during the viewing.
I like that image. Forensic investigation. You're not just a tenant, you're an auditor. Which brings us to the most painful part of the audit. The money. The deposit.
The famous deposit. Usually 2 or 3 months of rent. We are talking about thousands of dollars sitting in someone else's bank account. The number one complaint I hear from expats is not, "I couldn't find a place." It's, "I never got my deposit back."
How do you protect against that? It feels like once the money is gone, it's gone.
You protect it with documentation. On the day you move in, you take photos of everything. A scratch on the floor? Photo. A stain on the curtain? Photo. You create a condition report and you make the landlord sign it. If you don't, that scratch that was there in 2020 becomes your bill in 2027. And always get an official receipt for every payment. No cash in hand without a paper trail.
It sounds like you have to treat the landlord-tenant relationship as a business partnership rather than a friendship.
That is exactly what it is. It can be a friendly partnership, but it is business first. And in any business, you need to negotiate. That's point number 8 on our list, and it's the one people ignore. They think the price is the price.
Especially in luxury. There's this assumption that if you haggle, you look cheap.
Which is a mistake. Everything is negotiable. Maybe you can't lower the rent, but can you negotiate for the landlord to pay the management fee? Can you ask for a clause that says they handle AC maintenance every 3 months? Can you negotiate a diplomatic clause that lets you break the lease if your company transfers you? In 2026, with the market supply being quite high, the tenant has more power than they think. But you have to ask.
It's about asking the right questions. But what happens when things go wrong? When the AC explodes, the landlord disappears, and the ceiling starts leaking.
Then you need the nuclear option. Legal support. This is the final piece of the puzzle. If you are renting a high-end property, the cost of a lawyer to review the contract is a fraction of what you risk losing. Or, at the very least, use a reputable agency. There are freelance agents who disappear the moment you sign. A reputable agency has a reputation to protect. They will often mediate if the landlord goes rogue.
It seems like the core theme here is due diligence. It's not a sexy term, but it's the foundation of a good life abroad.
Due diligence is the price of admission. Look, HCMC is an amazing place to live. The energy is infectious, but the city doesn't hold your hand. It expects you to be smart. Safety is another aspect of this. We aren't just talking about theft. Those secure access and 24/7 guards are non-negotiable in luxury builds. I'm talking about fire safety.
That's a chilling thought for a high-rise.
It is. When you tour the building, don't just look at the pool. Look for the emergency exit. Is it unlocked? Is it clear of debris? In 2026, safety standards have improved, but enforcement can still be spotty. You are responsible for your own survival plan.
It's a sobering reality check. We started this conversation talking about the view from the balcony, and we've ended up talking about fire escapes and legal clauses. But I suppose that's the duality of the expat experience.
It is. The romance of living in Vietnam is real, but it has to be built on a foundation of pragmatism. If you get the boring stuff right, the contract, the registration, the safety checks, then you can actually enjoy that view. You can sit on that balcony with a glass of wine and truly relax, because you know you're covered.
If you don't do the work, you're just sitting there waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Exactly. And in a city that moves this fast, you don't want to be the one caught off balance.
So for everyone listening who is planning that move in 2026, don't let the shiny facade blind you. Read the fine print, check the red book, and maybe, just maybe, hire a lawyer before you hire an interior decorator.
Wise words. The luxury isn't the apartment. The luxury is the peace of mind.
That's a great place to leave it. Secure your peace of mind first. Thanks for the deep dive.
Always a pleasure. Stay safe out there.